All right, welcome to the Team Avatar show. I am joined by two guests. One of them is a returning, the other is a newcomer. So I'll introduce the newcomer first. This is Luke, my friend.
Welcome.
We are also joined by Logan once again. He is returning from the Percy Jackson show.
Yes, hello.
And we're going to be reviewing episode 1 of the Avatar show. Also, I didn't know that it was going to just drop all the episodes at one time. That was a little... I didn't see that one coming. Threw me for a curveball. But I want to ask Luke first, your impressions on episode 1 of the show.
Okay, so without getting into any of the details or like giving my ratings or anything like that, I just want to say from beginning to end, my opinion of it remained pretty much the same, and I thought it was enjoyable. I wouldn't say it jumped out at me like it was anything that was amazing, but I also wouldn't say that it was a massive disappointment. It basically, in my opinion, did what it needed to do to make itself enjoyable and watchable, without losing too many of the original content to make it be like, okay, there's no point in watching it anymore. So I would say it was, like I said, pretty enjoyable, good, not the greatest, but it could have been worse.
Fair enough. All right, Logan, then I'd like to ask, what were your thoughts on the episode 1?
So I thought the first episode was actually pretty good. Like, it was better than most of the Percy Jackson episodes. So it's definitely going to be in my higher ratings.
I'm the same way. I thought this episode was very good. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot of complaints with this episode at all. There was things maybe here and there that I thought were a little interesting. But for the most part, I enjoyed the episode. I'm glad that we're all in agreement that it was at least good.
Yeah. It wasn't bad.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I feel like I'm going to be the bad guy in this video.
You're going to be the bad guy, because I don't have a lot to criticize on it.
I got plenty.
Okay, we're the good guys now.
This is weird to me, because I felt like I was very critical on the Percy Jackson show, and that's not really the case in this. But maybe that's because I don't have a lot of knowledge on the show,
yeah,
really.
Okay, so we should kind of explain, all of our, interests of how we got into Avatar. I watched it a lot as a kid, watched the whole thing as a kid when it was coming out, and then I rewatched the whole series about 2 years ago, and I've seen bits and pieces of different episodes since then, but I got about a 2-year gap since I've fully seen it, so I don't have a lot of memory of the small details of the show, but I just remember the big plot elements into which characters, how they acted, and what their whole personalities was. And I know you said, Eric, you are completely new.
Yeah, so I watched for the first time the original. I watched through season 1 just to review this season, just to see how the adaptation went for just purely this season. I haven't watched season 2 or 3, which I want to do.
He's got the freshest memory, even though he's the newest one in the series.
Yes, I technically have the freshest memory. And then Logan, you were similar to Luke, correct?
Yeah, I watched it growing up as a kid, and then I recently rewatched it about 2-3 years ago, and then I started rewatching the first season to compare to the live action.
Okay, makes sense. We got some veterans in here, I would say.
Veterans and a newcomer.
Yeah, I'm a noob, as the kids say. So I guess I'll ask you. Let's just jump right into the plot. The first opening stretch of the episode kind of covers really what the Fire Nation is up to at the beginning, before we have the big time skip with Aang. What did you guys think of kind of the differences? Because the original show didn't really give you much of this. It's kind of we get more of it as the season kind of progresses into the backstory, I feel like. So I wanted to ask, I guess I'll go with Luke first. What were your thoughts on that?
So I thought it was cool seeing the whole... Okay, so wait, before we go in, just from watching the first episode, you could tell that... because season 1 of the original series is how many episodes?
It's 20
episodes, and they're turning into 8 episodes on Netflix.
Yep.
You could, in my opinion, you could really feel the condensing of everything, because we used to have those episodes where like Eric was saying, it was a big mystery as to what the Fire Nation did with the air nomads. It was kind of this build up. It was it wasn't, all the airbenders are dead. It was we haven't seen them in a while. We know there's a big war going on. We're gonna investigate the air temple, and then hints and clues are being dropped, and it's okay, yeah, clearly something happened here, and then a big reveal that the air nomads are dead. This show starts right off with guys getting their faces melted. Yep. Dudes are being frag grenaded. A lady becomes a tornado, but then gets caught on fire.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool. I thought it was amazing. It was good. I thought the effects looked great, better than the Avatar the movie. Like the firebending looked great. Everything looked nice and speedy. It wasn't slowly drawn out like how the movies were making it. The show, it's like the same speed as it was in the cartoons, where people are like doing their attacks at like lightning pace. And I thought it was great. I liked seeing the Fire Nation attack the air temple. I will say though, even though it was cool to watch, it does kind of feel a little bit rushed with the whole thing with because in the original show I remember that it was like a whole episode or whatever, you'd get like different flashbacks of Aang, first off, just his life at the air temple, and then Aang figuring out, well, overhearing that he was the Avatar, like listening to the air nomads and all that kind of stuff, and it's like this big build up or whatever, these flashbacks, and then he flees out into the storm just out of like distraught and sadness. He's like not thinking straight. He just flees out into the storm. But this show kind of condenses all those plot elements in one. Like the Fire Nation attack, the Aang leaving the air temple, all get condensed in like the moment Aang leaves, like as he's leaving, the Fire Nation just begins their attack. So it was cool to watch, but I do feel like it was rushed, just how they try to condense it all together. But I don't know. It may get better. I just didn't like how it felt like everything was being absolutely rushed in the beginning. It was like, oh, Aang, you're the Avatar. Aang leaves, Fire Nation attacks. Oh, Aang wakes up again. like,
yeah, that's fair enough. I'll give my opinion last because I do have something to say about that. But Logan, did you have any differing thoughts from that, or anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add to it. I will say I did like the very beginning of the first episode because it was uncharted territory more or less with the cartoon. We never really got to see how the Fire Nation exactly attacked the Air Nomads, so I thought that was rather interesting to see. I will say the fighting in the very beginning I thought that was pretty cool.
Agreed.
I was not expecting it to look that good, but it was amazing. And then the effects just look really good. But I do agree with Luke that the whole way they're doing it is rushed, which I get. Taking 20 episodes, putting it down to 8 does make it difficult to not rush it because you have to. But I don't really have any differing opinions or ideas on it than what Luke said.
I kind of almost disagree because for me, when I watched it, it didn't really feel forced because I almost felt like you didn't need as much of that background as much because I feel like they did enough to where I was like, yeah, I can believe, okay, this kid grew up here, and the point is, this kid he's overcome with the emotions of being the Avatar. All that kind of stays kind of the same. And then, so the major difference that I saw was like the reason in which he leaves is slightly different.
yeah.
Which, again, I was kind of okay with. I think it is better in the original, but it's not anything I was like super, complaining about. But the thing I really took away that I really liked from this open is it showed the Fire Nation as being someone or a people that you don't mess around with. You don't trifle with. They're very powerful. Mm-hmm. And like, even when I watched this and I was kind of reflecting on it, I couldn't help but like think about Star Wars and how they went with the sequels and how it kind of feels like that's how the First Order was supposed to be. You were kind of supposed to get that vibe that they're, you're not supposed to mess with them. Kind of like the Empire was, right? I think the Empire, the Fire Nation, a lot of how they started that kind of feels very similar. I don't know what happens in season 2 or season 3. So I don't know if they give more to the Fire Lord, because in season 1, there's basically nothing on the Fire Lord. So I like that they actually, gave him something to do in this season. Like, right off the bat, Luke, you seem like you want to comment on that.
I think the reason why, because there's a lot of plot development that goes on from the original cartoon show, learning about the different characters' relationships and their overall goals. So whenever you do finally meet the Fire Lord and you see how he acts, like his interactions with the other characters, it's like this bigger, like I wouldn't say it's like a big reveal. It's like not a big spoiler, but it's definitely like a shakeup to the flow of the show. Because like, without like spoiling anything for you, Eric, but it's just the way the characters act in season 1. I feel like once you meet the Fire Lord and you go into the later seasons, you begin to understand. So I was okay. I would have been okay if we didn't meet the Fire Lord at this moment. But also at the same time, that's a different Wait, now that I think about this, that's a different Fire Lord too. Because the Fire Lord that
I was going to
initiates
say
the
that
tag
was the
is
one
like
100 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
fair.
Never mind.
But
I was thinking that we were talking about the same Fire Lord for a second. Like,
well, that's a good point. But I mean, I like that like we just get something behind the Fire Nation outside of they're just this force. Like we give some face to who is kind of leading the operation.
get to watch him melt a guy.
I like the deception. This is the Game of Thrones side of me saying like, oh yeah, okay, there's some strategic planning here. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna let this guy, let the plans or the rumors that they're gonna attack the Earth Kingdom, get out. I like that idea because then it's like, okay, well everybody's focused on them. You go attack somebody else. I like that idea.
I also like seeing all the different sky bison.
Yeah, no, it was pretty smart.
That was cool. That was a cool scene.
I will say though, unless I missed it, I didn't see any of the monkeys or the flying lemurs or anything.
No, I did not either. Not that I know of.
Unless I missed it, I didn't see a flying lemur at the air temple.
They might have been like a small background
Yeah, it
thing,
could have
but I
been a
also don't
background
think
thing.
they really show the flying lemurs
Also,
in the first episode or two.
It looked like the kids at the air temple were wearing little like white New Balance shoes.
That's
when
true.
they were running around, I was like, you get like a New Balance sponsorship or something.
I will say though, something I did appreciate because this has been something that I've just watching Percy Jackson has really made me frustrated. I at least like that Netflix as a whole seems to be like they're actually putting everything behind this show, and they're not like going, oh yeah, this is the bare minimum that we could possibly do for this show, and just putting it out. Like, just you can tell just from the opening that visually, I thought the entire episode looked stunning. I don't know if you guys disagree with that, but I thought, for the most part, everything looked really, really good.
It all looked visually, it looked visually like it's from Avatar.
Yes, it looked very good.
I will say the only
Just
visual
like it.
complaint I ever had was we didn't see any Fire Nation guys with the cool skull mask. I would have loved to have seen that, but otherwise everything looked like it was Avatar. Like all the Airbenders, the way they dressed looked like Airbenders. The Fire Nation guys without the skull mask looked like Fire Nation. The Water Tribe looks like Water Tribe. Appa looks like Appa. The effects look like the effects of the show. It all visually looks cohesive. It's not nothing looks out of place to make it like pull you out of the show.
Agreed. I mean, Logan, did you want to add anything before we continue with visuals?
No, the visuals were good. I will also state the first couple of transitions that we have, like when they arrest the Earthbender. I thought that transition was very good.
There was really good transitions early on. Early on there was definitely I didn't pay attention as much on the transitions later on because there's just not as many, right? Because you're kind of sticking with the same like rolling scenes. There's not as many. Okay, you're going from this place to this place or this scene to this scene. Yeah. So I think it was just more noticeable in the beginning.
I missed
it. And then
so
first couple minutes.
There's like a couple, right? There's like you have the guy getting captured from the Earth Kingdom. There's another one where it's basically they transition from the Air Temple down to the Fire Nation soldiers. That's really good. There's just a couple early on, I think, when you're going from like scene to scene.
Oh, okay.
But again, me and Logan probably noticed this a lot more because we just came off of a show where the transitions were fade to black every time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if I didn't notice it, that means it wasn't bad to where I was like upset.
That's a good thing, right? Like you're not supposed to notice transitions as much as other things in the show. Whereas like me and Logan, it's like we just got done watching really abnormally bad transitions.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I think all this was handled pretty well. I know you guys maybe had some gripes with certain things. I for most part, it all kind of worked for me. But I also wanted to say, I thought this was, regardless of if you think it was forced, that doesn't really have anything I'm about to say, but I think this is something when it comes to adaptation that is just good. Like, it's just something that I think, in the original, we don't see this battle, right? We don't see the battle in the Southern Air Temple. That's a cool addition, right? Just to have, just on stuff that doesn't break lore. It's something that would have happened. I just think it's really cool. It's something where
it's something for older, like returning fans. It's something new for them to see, but also at the same time for new fans, it helps them understand like the plot of the show.
Yeah, it's building on what they're trying to do with the show while also not actively being detrimental. Like that's something with Percy Jackson, Logan. I know you can agree with this, that they did all the time. So it's just, I really think it's like night and day when you look at the adaptation there, and we've just seen a lot of bad adaptation lately. But, so again, the end of this sequence leads to Aang basically gets caught up in the water, has a bubble.
Yeah. I felt like him leaving. I liked it better in the original show because it showed he was upset and he wasn't thinking straight, so he flew into the storm, like just trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
This kind of is just like he was like flying to clear his head, but he was still flying through a storm. I'm like, okay, why wouldn't he have just turned around?
Yeah. I mean, he does try, but
like after he's already in the storm.
Late, yeah.
Like in the cartoon, Aang, like the whole thing was a storm, so even if he flew, he would have hit a storm. This was like, I felt like it was just kind of convenient, like, now let's move Aang away from the air temple.
Yeah, it is one of those things where I'm like, I think it's okay in the show.
Could have been better, but
it could have been better. I think it's just fine.
Yeah,
like, it is better. It is better in the original though. So anything you guys want to add before we get to time skip to the normal story?
No, I would say, yeah.
Logan, you got anything else?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's nothing major. It's just it threw me off very pretty bad. I was not expecting it to be not this violent, but like them showing all the not burning body, but all the crispy bodies. Like I was not expecting that at
like
all.
a lady, like tornado fire lady.
I mean, they're just showing people getting incinerated, dude.
Yeah, the Earthbender at the beginning.
The
they're
first
just all these people getting
cut,
which makes sense. It's more realistic, but
it's realistic. But it ain't a kid show.
Like, oh my gosh!
I will say this is something I wanted from the original. Even as a kid, there's like, without spoiling, like there's stuff in like the later seasons where you see like big fights. And even as a kid, I was like, "You're telling me not a single one of these guys is killed?" Like even like as a kid, I was like, "Come on, this is unbelievable." I'm glad we're actually. I feel like once we get hopefully. They release a season 2 or whatever, or I don't know how far this show's gonna go, but I would like to see those big battles and actually done with proper amounts of casualties. Even though that sounds horrible to say, but
that would be cool to see.
Yeah,
it's All I'm gonna say is there's a reason I put in our group. This is not a kid show no more. I feel like that's being a little unfair because yes. I feel like this is a kid show, the original anyway, but it still has like very mature themes in it, and it has more. It's not just strictly. It's like comparatively, it's like the Clone Wars TV show. It's very similar to my opinion.
Yes, yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, it's a kid show, but it also has some darker themes as well, and it's got some things going on. Mm-hmm. But this again gets us to a time skip, and we get into. Basically, Aang being rediscovered and being introduced to our other leads of the story, in Sokka and Katara. So I guess I'll open the floor with you, Logan. What did you think of, again, everything, I guess, leading up to Aang being reawoken?
It's pretty accurate to the cartoon, so I enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. I do and don't like how they made Katara even worse of an waterbender than she already is. I thought that was kind of interesting since she would have no training from anybody else since they're all gone. So her barely being able to move the water, I thought was kind of a nice change compared to she can have it float up in the air and whatnot.
I agree with that. I think it's one of those things where I did notice, like in the original, I'm like, Katara kind of seems like she goes to 100 very quickly. It's something where I'm like, I like that we start out and it's like, okay, the reason she's able to do some stuff in this episode is because, okay, she actually gets some sort of training, even if it is something as simple as just, how do you move your body? Like, how do you like get your powers to work? Like, that's something that's very important. That'd be really like crucial. So I did like that as well. Luke, thoughts on that?
I thought the opening, like not the opening, but the awakening of him was fine. It's pretty. I'm gonna be honest. It's pretty different than it was in the actual show. At least with like how he awakens, where he's unconscious. Wait, how far can I talk ahead? Like all the way to the camp?
You can talk all the way to camp. Go ahead.
Because in the original show, he woke up, because Katara was being angry with Sokka or whatever, and like using her powers, and like in the background, the iceberg breaks open.
Yeah.
And he wakes up right then and there, and they're all introducing each other, and then Appa's right there. This show takes it kind of differently, where Aang gets released from the ice, but he's still unconscious, and then they bring him back to the Snow Tribe, or water tribe.
Water tribe.
Snow powered. Yeah, the water tribe. So it was different. I wouldn't say it's a bad different or a good different. It's just different.
It's just different.
Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah, it's just different.
But my main issue comes into meeting Katara and Sokka's grandma. I think, in my opinion, in the cartoon, I liked her. In this show, I feel like this comes to my biggest issue with a lot of the characters, but especially her. I feel like all her line deliveries are so flat with everything she says, and it feels like all she is here for is just to be the exposition person dropping off all the information. Like, that's all it feels like the point of her character was in this episode.
Yeah, yep, it did. Eric, for the Percy Jackson people, she's the new Grover for a couple episodes. So,
I guess my thoughts around that is like,
going on there.
I didn't really view her as that big of a character in the original either. That's kind of how I view it, where she wasn't as big of like exposition up as she is in the newer show, but in the original, she was kind of the same way, but just not as bad.
That's right. I just think her line deliveries are just awful in the show.
Yeah. See,
yeah.
I guess I didn't really pay attention to it. It didn't strike out to me, I guess. So, I mean, I guess I don't know. You guys agree on it, so
yeah. No, when it comes to whenever my whole opinion of the show is the only big issue I have is I feel like most of these characters, especially the grandma and Sokka, I feel like and Katara and Aang, feel like a lot of their line deliveries are just them reading from a piece of paper. Like when Aang wakes up at the Water Tribe and he's walking around the kids, he's like, "Where am I? How did I get here? Appa? Where's Appa?" I'm like, okay. Was this one take? I feel like this was just one take.
I do agree. I think
it did seem like
the weakness of this show that I kind of took away, and I didn't notice it with the grandma. I didn't notice it with the three kind of main leads.
I thought the grandma was the worst offender.
I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention as much when she came on screen, but I definitely noticed it with the other three because you just get more of them, I guess. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
But I did notice it was like there was some certain points where I was like, the acting wasn't great, or the way they were telling them to deliver that wasn't, it wasn't the best. It could have been better.
No.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the first Harry Potter movie. Like there's just some like scenes where it's like, okay, you got kid actors. It's like, this wasn't great.
It's like, hey, I can forgive a kid actor, but that grandma,
she got no excuse.
She should know, but she's not a kid.
Grandma was rough.
She's got
man.
plenty of experience. She should know.
If she's, I don't, yeah.
But yeah, so we get a lot of that going on. I kind of want to just do this right away because in between all this going on, we also do get introduced to Prince Zuko. I hope I said that right.
Mm-hmm. Zuko.
Yep.
Zuko. Okay. I want to hear you guys' like thoughts on the character in the first episode, just so we can kind of get this character out of the way. I guess him in Iroh.
So I think Zuko is, out of all these characters in the show, I think Zuko's the best one as far as his emotion and just the way he acts with the other people. It feels like, in my opinion, like a direct translation from the cartoon. You get that one scene wherever that Fire Nation soldier's like basically talking shit on the deck of the boat, and Zuko comes out. He's like, "What'd you say, bro?" Like basically like that. And I think that actor did great at that. I will say I am disappointed. Uncle Iroh is my favorite character, and I feel like he was not as funny.
Yeah, he wasn't as funny.
I feel like Uncle Iroh is not as funny as, again, two-dimensional character, which, you could do a lot more in 2D with, like, exaggeration, like, facial features and whatnot. I hope we get more funny as the show goes on, because I noticed...
By far the funniest character of
the
original, the first season, anyway.
Can't wait to see it.
The original series, I thought Sokka was funny, and I thought Iroh was funny, and this whole episode, I saw no funny. So, that's my situation with those two characters. I like them. Didn't say they're awful. I like Zuko a lot, but I feel like Iroh could be better.
Logan, thoughts?
I like Zuko. They did pretty good with him. Iroh, I love the actor because I've seen him in many other things. I think in the first episode, he kind of talks funny. Like, it's very...
Zuko or Iroh?
Exaggerated words. I just thought it was kind of odd. But I think they're both going to hopefully improve. Well, Zuko was pretty good. I hope Iroh improves. One thing I do find that was kind of weird about that scene, and it's not any actor or actress problem, but when you see Zuko for the first time and Aang's doing his whole beacon thing, I thought it was kind of weird that Zuko would have all those little statues
I
of
was thinking
the
that too.
previous avatars. Like he that's not something he would have. He would have like the Fire Lord and maybe not his uncle, but maybe another great general
But
from
okay, I just
previous in the war.
Eric, since you see the cartoon recently, did he have those in the show?
I don't remember him having them in the show, but my explanation would be, again, he is basically obsessing over the Avatar.
Yeah, they're like homing
So
beacons.
he could be like researching the
Yeah.
avatars and stuff like that. So I would basically put it on it's more like an obsession type thing more than it is like
Yeah.
him being like a fan of them or something.
Yeah, so it's like another
That makes
classification where
sense.
it's like they're introducing a new element to the show for like old fans to rewatch and to I guess help new people understand like how they are tracking down the Avatar. It's just like I didn't remember him having those little Tinker toys in the original cartoon, but I thought they looked cool.
I thought he did look cool, but I thought the two characters were pretty good. I think we didn't get a ton of them for the most part. Like especially Iroh, we didn't get a ton of him, but I thought it was pretty well done. I also liked this is quite a ways away when where we are in the plot right now, but I do kind of like the scene between Iroh and Aang. Where they're kind of talking about the motivations of the Fire Nation, like why they attacked. I thought that was a very interesting scene because it's like it kind of foreshadows Iroh's kind of loyalties, kind of the things that he believes, but it doesn't like give you the answer right away. It just puts some indecision in there because it's like he explains the fire side of it, but he also kind of leaves it up to it's like, but does he believe this type thing? I don't. Did you guys like that as well or no?
I thought it was interesting. Like
Okay.
I like seeing all the Iroh we can get. Wish he was more funny, but
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was fine.
If you guys don't know,
I thought it was-
before you go in, Logan, Luke based his entire personality around Iroh.
I am. I'm Iroh, of course.
Yeah, that's fair. I like the scene between Aang and Iroh. It just shows it helps with Iroh's character. Just to show you how wise he is. He's not like the rest of the Firebenders where he's just straight to violence or anything. He's just kind of like, oh my gosh, it's the Avatar. I'm gonna talk to him.
It just gives
Figure
him
some
more
stuff
to
out.
do, which I enjoy
Yeah.
because the one thing that I think is kind of very consistent with the first season anyway is Iroh is definitely a funny character. You like him when he's on screen,
yeah.
but the one thing is like they don't really expand his character much in like the first half of the season. I feel like it's a lot of just it's him showing his wisdom to like Zuko as he's doing something stupid or he's being maybe rash or whatever. You don't get to really get into Iroh as a character as much. It's not really focused on him until I think the second half of the first season really starts to really get into him more. So I did like that. A good added scene that was pretty good. That was not in the original, which I liked. So let's talk again. So we kind of did a little bit of skipping around there, but so they get to the water village, and I'll ask you, Logan, first because I usually been asking Luke first. Thoughts on any of the stuff like at the water village, basically before the Fire Nation attacks, or I guess
Fire
Zuko
Nation attacks.
I mean, most of it was pretty good. There was nothing like crazy special about it. I will say it was kind of weird, the whole part where Aang just immediately goes to play with the kids, and then Sokka comes out. I thought that was kind of weird because, I mean, he just woken up. Well, I guess it didn't seem like that long for him, but he just sees them sitting out there playing around, and then immediately goes to join them. And I just thought that was something really strange to do because when I was a kid and I saw something like that, I would be scared, be like, who the heck are these kids? I'm probably not going to play with them. And he just goes straight for it.
I actually disagree with you on that. Because I think about it like this. So from Aang's point of view, right? He is basically losing his entire childhood, being able to have fun, play with the kids that were at the Air Temple. And again, for him, like time hasn't passed really. Like he thinks everything's still good. And so I didn't really view it as like him instantly going to play him, but he's seeing these kids and he's like just remembering that part of him. because he has that whole thing that comes back by the end of it of remembering who he is, and I think he sees that as being like who he is. So I don't know. I think I have a different interpretation of that than you do, but again, I thought it was solid. Anything else you want to talk about before I give it to Luke on this section?
Moving on after that, when he's talking in the I don't even know what to call it, the meeting hall, the whale rib cage. I will say I'm gonna go back to the grand. I'm gonna say the way she just started talking about like the very beginning, like prophecy. I thought it was kind of sad how they did that. It was very monotone.
Yeah,
and,
that's
like,
what I was saying.
just
She was just
randomly
like,
started saying the whole thing.
yeah.
Like she hadn't included the 4 elements and everything. I was like, that's just not necessary.
That's the one instance when you guys were talking about the delivery. That is the one instance that I could recall where I was like, yeah, that wasn't the best. That wasn't the best.
Yeah, no, they could have done a whole bunch better with that, but they left it like that. Which, I mean, the actress definitely could have gone for a less monotone voice and maybe had fluctuation, but she can't help that the writer said, okay, you're going to say the whole intro right here now.
Yeah.
But it was kind of rough.
They did give her a lot to say, a lot of exposition.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'll move on to Luke. Do you have anything you want to add or differences in opinion?
I got some shit I gotta say. Where's the fucking penguins? How come we didn't see any penguin skiing or sledding on penguins or whatever? That was something I was hoping to see, and we did not get to see that.
Yeah.
Another thing, too, a very sad, tragic loss. In the original Avatar show, when Sokka's preparing the defenses, ready to fight off the Fire Nation, he has this cool face paint, this cool war paint on his face. And we
that's right.
didn't get that in the show. And I was really hoping we'd see that. It's so badass.
You're heartbroken.
I was heartbroken when I saw that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought, everything was fine. Minus the bad line deliveries. It all looked the part. Sokka having the kids man the defense makes sense. I will say, I'm interested. Like this goes towards later in the episode, but I can talk about it here. We meet like this other water tribe guy who's like seems to be about the same age as Sokka.
Yeah.
Is he a new character?
Yeah,
I don't remember him from the cartoon.
I'm like 90% sure it's a new character.
That's what I say. So I wonder.
He's a new character, but I don't even think they give him a name or anything.
No.
He's just older water tribe boy.
He's NPC.
He's like an NPC, but I feel like just the fact that he's there and they kind of focus on him for a second, where Sokka's like, "You're gonna be the one manning the water tribe, or like this, protect the tribe or whatever." Leads me to think. I wonder if down the line we're gonna get like that person as a main character, which is kind of cool to see. That like we said earlier, they're adding stuff to the show that will help the show be something interesting to watch for reoccurring fans, and also like not affect the story in a majorly disappointing way.
Fill in some gaps.
Yeah. So otherwise, no, I thought the water tribe looked cool. Everybody's cool. Water's cool. Yeah.
One thing I will say with that character, since you brought it up, I do think it's almost like a fill in the gap situation where it's like in the original show, when you think about it, it's like, the only male defender that's of age leaves them defenseless.
The one guy who's told to protect the tribe.
Yeah, along with Katara, who's got water-bending powers. So I think it's also that it could be setting it up, or it could just be like, yeah, let's not leave the kids and the older folk and the women, like completely defenseless, even though they're already basically defenseless. But there's somebody here.
Yeah.
All right, hi guys. So I had an interlude here because at this point of the video, for some unknown reason, Logan's recording software, it just completely cut his audio out at this point of the video. Every time that he would start talking, it would just basically be like robot beeps. And so this section, the back half especially, is not as much how it was in the first half, where it was me kind of asking their opinions on things. There was a lot more like conversation because we had a lot of disagreements on certain plot points, and so I can't really edit it into a situation in which I just maybe cut Logan out of the second half. I kind of just have to re-record it by myself. I'm going to try to give you guys our overall thoughts on the second half of the episode and try to show maybe things that I liked and things that they didn't like and why that kind of led to our scores by the end of it. But yeah, so at this point, we have the Fire Nation attack, and we have some things here beforehand that's also really good. For me, I was a big fan of certain things that they did with keeping Sokka as a character who had actual struggles. I know there's been a lot of backlash on rumors about the character so far. And at least what I can tell in episode 1, they did a great job with keeping this as a character who is struggling to be a leader, struggling to understand what it is to be a man, and what that kind of means, because this is a guy who doesn't have a father figure in his life at this point, who is, his father has gone off to war and all that, and he's been left to be the leader of this village and to protect them. And he doesn't really know what that means necessarily. And so I like the back and forth that we kind of get with him and Katara, where he's kind of thinking about the survivability of all the people, while Katara is kind of seeing more of the big picture. And so I thought that dynamic was really interesting, even though I think the line delivery, which we all kind of agreed on, wasn't the best at times. I think what they were going with was quite good at times. I also found that I really enjoyed Katara and Aang's conversation when it came to the idea of grief, because it kind of comes back to the end of the episode when it comes to Aang realizing that 100 years has gone by, everyone that he knows is gone, and Katara talking about her mother. I thought that all really worked well. It helped build up that relationship, and that's another conflicting point we're going to talk about later on in the episode, because I think we all kind of agreed on a certain aspect, but there was a big change towards the end that we discussed a little bit in depth. But that kind of leads us to one of the biggest, I think, divisive points that we all three had, or not all three. It was more like I thought it was good. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was bad or anything, and then they thought it was kind of not as good. So I'll kind of explain both sides, and then you can kind of, figure out what you want to take from that. But my thing with the idea of Aang already believing everything he's basically being told is, again, he wakes up in this water tribe, and he's basically being told, yeah, no airbenders have been seen for 100 years, which is quite weird, given that it seems like the airbenders, especially with what we can kind of see in the opening shot, they weren't like in hiding or anything. Like, they openly would, fly around and use their bison and things like that. So I think it's quite suspicious if you're waking up and you go, all these people are telling you, yeah, that's, not happening anymore. This is the first time they're so shocked to see an airbender. And I think the other part of it is you just look at it, it's like, why would they lie to you, right? That doesn't really make any sense for an entire tribe to just lie. I think, to me, it worked. I think it's also good the way the show does it in the original, but I also think the way the new show did it made sense given where we're having to get through in this episode. I think it makes sense for him to then go from a position of realization and contemplation directly after onto what has occurred. And I think they, Logan and Luke, were a little bit more on the idea of they didn't believe it right away. We had a conflicting idea on denial and what that would do to a character, because they believed that Aang shouldn't have believed this so quickly. Like, that he should have denied it quite a lot, because this water tribe is people that he doesn't know. They are kind of not uncivilized, but they are kind of like they're kind of poor. It seems like they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere type thing. And so you would kind of look at them and go, yeah, what do these people don't know? They don't know anything about the air nomads. They don't know anything about my way of life. So, I'm not going to just believe them and take them at their word type thing, as well as just kind of playing it on. I think this wasn't another point of conflict that maybe we had. And by conflict, I mean just like, just general disagreements on how we view things. But they comparing themselves into like a situation with Aang waking up, which, again, it's just your viewpoint of denial. How do you view a certain level of believable deniability? And that's something that will come up again later on. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what did you think of Aang's realization to everything that's happened? Do you think he should have believed it as quickly as he did? Or do you think it, felt correct and it felt almost natural? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But at this point, again, we see Aang give himself up because he does not want these people to be attacked because of him. And so he is captured. In the episode before, we've already talked about the Iroh and Aang scene, so we'll just skip that. But Aang, using his airbending powers, gets out of jail, and we basically see an escape scene, which, again, we all agreed was, it was fine. It wasn't anything spectacular or anything, but it was serviceable. It worked for what it was supposed to do. I did note they actually cut this scene down a bit from the original. The original, it's much more of an extended scene when it comes to this escape, which was maybe a little disappointing to see, but again, wasn't really that much major of a complaint. But then we get to this point here where we have another issue where I think we kind of disagreed on, because there is a fundamental part of this episode that you have to either agree or you're not going to agree on. And again, it's just this point of, okay, so after they escape, why does Aang choose to go to the Southern Air Temple? Because they're trying to figure out where can they go. The Fire Nation is going to come after them. And so no words are basically said, and they end up going to the Southern Air Temple. And so the point is like, well, if Aang already believes that the Southern Air Temple and all of his people are gone, and that he is the last Airbender, why go there? And so that was kind of something that I think Luke brought up. And what I thought about this was just that, one, it's his feeling of, yes, he may believe or, agree that, yes, that this probably happened. All the facts are leading that way. But he also wants to see it for his own eyes. See what truly happened to his home. Even, again, there may be a little bit of that hope where it's like, maybe it's not true. I think all of that kind of plays into why he would go back. And so all of this kind of happens, and a change I really liked, and this is, again, something we kind of disagreed on. I think I was a lot more positive on the show than Luke and Logan were, and I feel like you can kind of tell that in the episode. But something that we kind of also were like, up in, maybe not up in arms about, but it was kind of like we kind of just disagreed on certain things. I was someone that really liked the direct approach. I liked that when they get to the Southern Air Temple, it's not hidden, right? It's not like Aang doesn't know what happened here, or is like, oh, where is everybody? And like, because in the original show, it kind of all gets to this reveal when he finds his friend and his teacher, and you see basically his dead skeleton, more or less. But up to that point, like, Aang is oblivious, right? We see this really interesting scene where, like, in the original, Sokka has, like, a skull or has some sort of armor. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's something like a helmet, I believe, that he just hides from Aang to hide it from him, and saying, hey, Katara, he's going to find out at some point. Why don't we just tell him? Type thing. And so I like that in the new show, it's a change in which they were like, hey, let's not waste any time here and just be very upfront. And I think it's almost a little bit more realistic because, again, it kind of loops back to that whole idea of denial, right? So how much do you really deny what you're seeing around you because you don't want to believe it? And that's a point of kind of contention that we had. And I was someone where I was like, again, you see all of this different armor going around. You see nobody is here. You see all these things. And I looped it back. I'm like, if this was like, just say like a day ago, a week ago, if Aang came here and it looks completely different, it looks like there was visible signs of a struggle or something like that, and there's armor scattered around, there's no signs of life, Aang would kind of, it would just be that realization that, yeah, this did happen, and that doesn't really happen in the original, which I still think works in the original. I do like this new take, though, that the new show does, where we don't mess around. We get right into the nitty-gritty right away and don't waste time, because the new show just doesn't have that time to do it, with only being an 8-episode show. And so we get through all of this, and this is the point where I think there's another change here that was really interesting given the way it happened in the original. So in the original, we still see Aang basically go into his Super Saiyan form, where he's basically losing all control and he's summoning like almost a tornado or a really massive amount of power from his airbending. And in the show, they go with it being his teacher Getzo, I believe. I might be wrong on that. I'm not great with names. But in the original, it was actually Katara that brings him out. And it's a really big point of the show because it's about kind of establishing that relationship. Or it's actually really, it's not really establishing. It's really a culmination of the first couple episodes. In that episode, I believe 3, that happens, where Katara brings him out and has her whole speech about, you know, her and Sokka being his new family. It works really well in the original. But they don't do that in the new episode or the new show because I feel like there wasn't as much time with Katara. So I think believability wise, it makes more sense for the new show to go with tying it with his past, for Aang being able to come out of it himself because he's remembering and going with these flashbacks that he has to remember who he is, and that's the thing that pulls him out of it. I think that works way better in the new show than it would have, say, in the original, because the original, again, you had a more of an established relationship with Katara, to where Katara pulling him out of it works a lot better for the original. It doesn't work as well for the new show, and that's kind of because why does that happen, right? We kind of talked about that in the part of this episode, is because we got an entire intro scene with the Fire Nation early on. It cut a lot of time we could have had with more scenes to develop Katara, Aang, and Sokka. So because of that, I think it made more sense to connect the like opening stuff with what happens here. And so another kind of point we talked about was, well, how could they have done that differently to also keep what happens in the original with Katara? And I kind of introduced an idea where maybe you kind of do like a Breaking Bad type thing, where you get more and more into this intro stuff. You basically break up the intro stuff we got for episode 1 throughout the season, and by the end of the season, you kind of have that whole picture as to what actually happened here. That could have worked better. I still like the intro stuff, so it's just like an alternate way of maybe doing it that would have also led with Katara having this moment still like she did in the original. But that was kind of our episode review. I kind of broke it down much quicker because we went for another like 30 minutes after the point in which I kind of came in. So again, I did kind of summarize a bit because it's hard to have a conversation with just yourself when it comes to like different viewing points and things. And so that got us to our end of the episode ratings. And Luke, so I'll go with him because I think he was the most critical. Not I think, he was. He gave the episode a 7. Just he was critical of the acting, delivery of lines, and some of the certain differences in the original to the new show. Logan was a 8.5 out of 10. Kind of the same rationale. I just think he enjoyed things better than Luke did, or maybe he was just more lenient. I don't know. And then I landed at a weird number. I was around like an 8.7, 8.8. I really enjoyed the first episode. I thought it did a lot right. I was not as big of I wouldn't say hater, but as big of a critic on certain changes or things they did. I could understand the rationale, and I like no point in the episode did I really feel like things were rushed. That's something that I think Logan and Luke felt. Again, maybe it's because I wanted the episode to be really good, or maybe I just looked past things. I didn't really get that feeling of it being rushed in the first 3 episodes, or the first episode covering the first 3 episodes, and so I gave it a pretty good rating, right? Like, that's higher than all of the Percy Jackson episodes. I only gave 1 episode. I think it was 1 or 2 episodes for Percy Jackson that even had an 8. So off to a good start. Not hearing great things about the coming episodes and trying to keep it out of my mind, and thinking maybe, just differences in opinions, like kind of like what we had in this episode. I will say, guys, this will probably be the only video that's, past 40 minutes, just because you can't really do a week by week analysis like how we did with Percy Jackson, with these longer videos when it gets dropped at the same time, because I can't be like 2 months down the road making a video on the finale. It's like it just kind of doesn't really make sense to do so. So yeah, I will be maybe doing like a video where I do a coverage on my own for episode 2, and then having like a review on the main like show like this. But we will keep doing these. These will probably though be more like 20 minutes, where we talk about the main things we liked, didn't like, and just a broad overview instead of kind of going through most of the plot points, right? Like, I feel like the first half, those first 30 minutes, we really took a slow pace through the first half of the episode, and then I kind of sped it up here at the end. But let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.